Alright, I do have a few reviews that I'm going to get through, and uh, most of them are going to find themselves compound reviews, particularly because I missed a lot of points where I had opportunity to talk about single volume stories, and with some single issue reviews that I missed, this is kind of going to tackle sort of a compilation review. I might should include Death of the Family in this, but I'm deciding to just talk about that besides itself. And this is just kind of a critique about Scott Snyder on Batman as it folds out so far, at least with the entire Owls saga. This is a review for Court of the Owls and City of the Owls, which are the first two solo Batman volumes of the New 52, written by Scott Snyder with art by Greg Capullo. We also have some backup features, which are co-written by Snyder and James Tyrion IV. And forgive me, but I can't remember the name of the artist right now. All right, so with the New 52 coming, and whether or not Snyder intended to do this, whether the New 52 was coming or not, we get the Owl saga, which unfolds. Um, the story has been reviewed and talked about so much, but this is just me throwing out my own 2 cents on it. Uh, in case you haven't gotten it, the story is that Batman comes to find out that there is this secret society, which just up until now nobody's bothered mentioning the nursery rhymes of, that kind of goes into sort of a Freemasonic type secret order that has always been Gotham and has always controlled every aspect of pretty much anything that has happened in Gotham. And in typical detective fashion, we start this out as a murder mystery, and then it builds up into a uh, confrontation, and then just explodes into an epic crossover. Which, besides this and Batgirl, I didn't really read too much of. So there's a lot of points that I'm going to critique about this, particularly when it comes in with the second volume. As it stands with the first volume, the Court of Owls is just absolutely fantastic. Snyder has a great voice for Batman. Um, the opening issues and a little bit more into character vulnerability that we see for Batman is probably one of the strongest things that people will take away about Snyder's Batman run once it's over with. Just a lot of moments in between him and Alfred, and him and Grayson, which unfold, are pretty good throughout the series. Um, if you've read some Batman before, and particularly uh, anything that Grant Morrison did out of R.I.P., or even a couple of aspects as far back as Arkham Asylum, a lot of this Batman has basically amounts to been there and done that. Um, in a way, the Court of the Owl stuff is pretty much R.I.P. all over again, although we just have different circumstances to give it the appearance of something different. Um, I'm kind of on the fence now since Snyder's run has unfolded so much over the last year and a half. Basically, his entire run on Batman tantamounts to being love letters to Batman stories past, which is not a bad thing, but yet at the same time, if you're a casual to hardcore Batman fan, this might ease you back out of liking the story a little bit more than how well it's already written. I'm trying to figure out where to start. When we pick up, particularly with the Talon, who is sort of the court's enforcer for picking off certain citizens through silent assassinations, they decide to target Batman, and they bring him down to this underground maze and eventually proceed to break him down. And this again is a lot of been there and done that with Batman. This is kind of a point to where Batman has been so overexposed throughout comics, and just much more so than now. I think he has like a fucking dozen or 16 books that, if he's not included with, will tie into the Gotham Bat family in some way. This is a lot of been there and done that. And it kind of, I love the love letter aspect of Snyder's writing with Batman to, give tribute to Batman stories past, but at the same time, it is kind of a downer when you sit there and consider the fact that this is not really bringing anything new to the table. Now, it's only new to those who have not read a lot of Batman in the past. Otherwise, you'll find yourself really left wanting in certain aspects of the story. Greg Capullo's artwork, as always, is fantastic. I especially love when we get into the latter half of the first volume, and as Batman is being tortured by the Talon inside the underground labyrinth that they've set up. The artwork just goes crazy, and there's actually a few points to where you're actually going to have to be spinning the book around. Because basically Capullo is trying to pull the reader into Batman's state of dementia, and besides the fact that you just have to go along with that, you'll have a laugh to yourself if you're sitting in public somewhere reading this and you're flipping the book over and people will just be looking at you funny, and there is that to take away from it. So on the whole, the first volume is fantastic. The second volume is kind of where we're going to start declining a little bit in terms of the story quality. Batman eventually does make his way out of the labyrinth, and with the court, it's one of those aspects, a villain is set up an impossible trap to get out of, and somebody's finally done it, so snapper fingers and desperate measures are taken to regain control of the city from Batman. This leads into a lot of the crossover stuff. Majority of the Bat family will cameo into this. The second volume, which, if anybody bought the Night of the Owls trade, which is just the crossover, the first volume of Batman collects the first 7 issues. Volume 2 of Batman collects 8 through 12, I believe. And it's really, if anybody bought the Night of the Owls, basically what I'm trying to say is that you will find yourself ripped off tremendously. What happens, apparently, come to find out, is that they put 8 through 10 of the Batman issues into the Night of the Owls trade. So if you go back and buy the second volume to just get the conclusion to Batman's aspect of the Night of the Owls, you're going to find yourself being forced to double dip. I would personally recommend just sticking with the 2 Batman volumes, and if it so happens that a library comes up with the Night of the Owls crossover, or somebody you knew unfortunately took the step and bought it, borrow it, and just save yourself being ripped off for the extra Batman issues. The quality of the storytelling with the Talons you'll find yourself starting to go down a little bit unless you could change your logic as to the way that they start acting once they attack Bruce Wayne in his mansion. The first Talon in Court of Owls was quiet, he was mysterious, didn't really speak that much. Here they decide to get a little bit more gabby, and I'm presuming that maybe it's just because either the court told them to, or that some of them are just more just have more bravado when they go into assassinating someone. And this kind of robbed any kind of mystery or just kind of creep factor that the Talons might have once they start opening their mouths. And then we kind of descend into the 11th and 12th issues of the series, especially when we go to finally confront the Court of the Owls. We get a twist which will lead to another twist when Batman finally goes to confront their leader. And this has caused a bit of a divide among Batman fans, particularly because there's something in it personally that ties back to Bruce, besides his parents' murder. And I think it's done partly just because this is the New 52 and they can tweak the Bat mythos a little bit. Fans will find themselves slightly divided on it. I like the twist, but I'm kind of wondering how much it'll stick. If you're a hardcore Batman, Batman fan, you'll definitely pick up on it. But basically, the City of the Owl stuff finally ends in issue 11. Issue 12 basically is just the introduction of the Harper Row character, who you would see back in issue 6. Yeah, I think she was back in issue 6. I forgot to talk about her there. She's introduced somewhere towards the middle of the first volume, I think, and then they kind of have a solo issue just between Batman and her. Which she's an interesting character just based on introduction, but they're kind of building up something with her to come in the future. You can tell as you read the story. What it is exactly you don't know yet, but it's an interesting character piece, but not really the best to wrap up the second volume with. And just during the entire course of the fight with the head Talon, too, I forgot, there's a lot of monologuing on his part, which kind of interrupts the feel of the fight as it unfolds throughout the story. It starts out as a lot of grounded Batman, but then just kind of eventually flies off into a little bit more fantastical, which might irk you a little bit. And there's something else. The annual I got to talk about. We get the Batman Annual 1 in the second volume, which introduces the Mr. Freeze of the New 52. A lot of people came off hating the story. I personally liked it just because it's trying to remove itself from the persona of Mr. Freeze that everybody has become accustomed to, which was the one that Paul Dini wrote into the animated series. It kind of changes the ideals of Mr. Freeze and takes the idea of a sympathetic character away from him, or it could keep it there. Which is clearly up to the reader's interpretation based on how he's presented in that annual. The problem with the annual, however, is its placement in the second volume. Basically what happens is that apparently Mr. Freeze is a danger to the court, at least the Talons, with a particular type of weakness that the Talons have, and they want to take him out. But you get the annual in the middle of the second volume, which throws off the story, and it's really something that you need to actually go back and read at the end of this. And whether or not you like it will depend on what type of stance that you take with Freeze in this presentation of him in the New 52. Overall, as far as grading the entire saga of the Court of the Owls, at least for the solo Batman book, this is a good story. However, this will be kind of a foreshadow of what's to come with when we get to Death in the Family, because Snyder can write some fantastic beginnings and middle ground, but when he gets to the end of his stories, he kind of loses any ideal of good progression towards a climactic ending, and it just kind of falls apart almost into Batman the Animated Series logic. Disappointing ending and some of the problems I have aside from this, this is a story which is well written. If you love the love letters to Batman stories past, you'll definitely like this. Snyder has a great voice for Batman in this. You get to see him vulnerable at some points in this. And basically, this is just Batman, once again, trying to maintain control of a world that even he cannot control for as much as he tries to. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this to anybody who is curious about it. Longtime Batman fans who haven't picked up something in a long time, this is definitely a good way to get back into current Batman. Uh, if you've read Morrison's stuff, it's kind of retreading some ground, but it's still not without its merits. So I definitely recommend both these volumes.